The appellate court has 3 judges that listen in the appellate court. Ours is a little unique. The head judge, which is the Chief Justice of the appellate court, decided to sit in on our case, which is rarely ever done. He sat in, and he's actually the one that wrote the opinion, which is rarely ever done, and wrote the opinion on ours. And what's funny about the opinion he wrote on ours, it had nothing to do with venue. It had something to do with another part of the case which we weren't even arguing. So we actually left that part open that we could discuss that at a later time if that was brought back in court. So now we're in a position, now we're going to be going to the Texas Supreme Court. So we're going up the channels. But the whole thing about this story is, from the beginning, we knew that we were going to have to do this. Because the state of Texas in no way or no form is going to let itself get burned. And we all have to understand that. The state of Texas's job is to protect the state of Texas. And their job is to protect it against people like us or anyone that's going to come against the state. And that's just what it is. So basically the judges are circling the wagons and they're going to make sure that we do not present our evidence in court. The worst thing for the state of Texas right now is if our case comes to court, they're not going to have a defense to go against us. And they cannot bring anything else in because we're already now within court. And already discovery has been issued, so nothing else can be brought in. So because of that, they're in a bad position. And they know if they get this case within the courts and we present the documents that we have, they're going to be in a position where it's going to be very embarrassing for the state. And the documents we have, they have always been in possession of. It's nothing that they didn't have that I got from somewhere else. They were actually in possession of the documents, they just didn't know they had them. But we've located them all, and they're all within our possession, within our attorney's possessions. So we have that. So right now, where we're at, we're petitioning the Texas Supreme Court to be heard. If we're heard, great. If we're not heard, the next court is the U.S. Supreme Court. We're going to take it all the way to the top. There's nowhere we're going to stop. We're going to take it all the way to the top until we're told we can't go any further. But what we see in this is the key to this is to get it out of the state of Texas. Until we get it out of the state, or until one of the judges, like Mr. Patterson said, is bold enough to make a statement and say, you know what, let me hear this. What we're talking about in this room, everyone's paperwork, everything there is never going to be seen by anybody. The legislative session that was done in 2014-15 was nothing but a charade to keep us basically on that merry-go-round. They had no intention of helping us. No intention of helping us. I talked to the head of that legislative body 3 or 4 times. And from what I got from him, he had no intention of helping us. None of them did. He said the stories were great to hear, but what do they want? And that's basically their philosophy. And until we get out of the court system here and we hopefully can get into the U.S. Supreme Court, because we're going to have to petition the court for that also. And that doesn't mean they have to hear us. The U.S. Supreme Court only hears 5% of the court cases that ever come within the U.S. Supreme Court venue. So that's a whole different monster that we're going to have to tackle at that time if we need to. But I guess the main thing I'm trying to say here is we have to become one. We have to unify ourselves to become one. If we keep scattering ourselves that I'm going to do this for my family here, that's good. And history is the best thing for a family. I understand that. But in the end game, are you going to be able to get something for your family or not? Or are you trying to make a point? If you're trying to make the point that you as a Hispanic family basically were jilted wrong or were treated wrong, then you need to unify as Hispanics. If you're doing it to try to get money for your family, look to see if you're able to. Because in all honesty, 98% of the people are not going to get anything. Are not going to get a penny. And the reason why is because it's privately owned land. And Mr. Patterson did tell you all that. 98% of it is. And the reason I tell you that is because I've looked at all of them myself. I have a map of what the state of Texas owns and what's privately owned. Every acre of land within the state. And 2 to maybe 1.5% of it's owned by the state. The rest is privately owned. If you want to go after those families, by all means go, but it's a money pit. We're almost already spending over $100,000 in court costs. And we're going to keep fighting and going. And there is a downfall to it. I mean, my family has split. We've split into two factions because we just have different philosophies on which way we need to go. But we're still a family in the end game. But understand, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage when you do this. And we're living proof of it. But if there's one family that can get to where we need to get to, we're the family that's going to get there. And the only reason why is because the law is actually behind this. And actually, not just the law, but a lot of other law professors, a lot of legal people are behind this because they're reading on what's going on. The state of Texas basically is going against legal law books right now in what they're doing and how they're doing things. Because they understand that if this gets out, what we have is going to open the doors for a ton of things and more to come. And they don't want this to come out. So this is why everything that we're seeing in court with the Galan family, nothing's even been brought out. Because why? They're using administrative processes within court, which basically we call dotting the I's and crossing the T's to make sure that this never comes out. So that's where we're at right now. Are there any questions on what I've said so far? With anybody? No? Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Johnny, and Johnny can talk to you from here. And if there are any questions after that, let us know. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. Or ma'am.
There's a mic if you want to come up here and so everybody can hear.
I'll repeat it, ma'am. Go ahead.
You've got a loud voice. What date do you expect to go before the Texas Supreme Court?
We don't know yet because we first have to petition the court, which we're doing right now. We have 45 days from the day the decision came down from the appellate court to make that, and we're doing that as we talk right now. When we get that date, we can let people know when we're going to be there, and we definitely love to have everybody there that can go. But when we find out, we'll let you know.
Please do so. I think that the unity and support that is shown there.
I think so too. I think it will. Somebody else? Yes.
You had mentioned adverse possession before, that some people
Yes.
could do adverse possession. What on your lawsuit are you suing the Texas for? What's the claim?
The claim that we're saying on ours is basically the state of Texas does not own the minerals which are on the Galan Tract and the portion of land we're talking about. We as a family still own those minerals. That's what we're saying. That's all we're suing for. We're saying we own those minerals and we can prove we own those minerals. Or the state of Texas has to disprove that we don't own those minerals by the paperwork they have. Like I said, they have admitted in open court that they do not have one piece of paperwork stating that Galan Tract belongs to them. They can't even show an abstract. An abstract is something, anyone who's bought land, you gotta get an abstract. You gotta get it. Texas does not have an abstract for that piece of land. And they cannot show one. And that's where they're having a serious issue right now. And they don't want that to come out because if any judge is bold enough to hear the case, the first thing they're going to ask is, can you show us an abstract or a conveyance from the Galan family to you? And they say no. All the judge can rule is say, this land goes back to the Galan family. How do you own it? You don't own it. There has to be something saying you own it. And there's nothing. Nothing.
Why haven't they done it?
The reason why is because the state of Texas, the piece of land I'm talking about is about 75% of the economy of Texas. 75%. This is the land that funds what's called the Public University Fund and the Texas Education Fund.
Oh, okay.
This is the piece of land that funds that piece. Right there funds that whole thing.
With oil, you're talking
With
about.
oil and natural gas. So if that comes out, that land has never belonged to the state of Texas, they're in some serious issue. Now, us as a family, are we looking to say, hey, give it to us all? No. We're not looking for that. All we're asking is for the state of Texas to sit with us. Say, you know what? Okay, you got us. We had no idea that the idiots in the 1800s did this to you guys. But we want to work with you. Let's sit down and let's talk about something amicably to make sure that all of us are okay. And we're not looking to change the economy. We're not looking to disturb anything. What we're looking for is just for them to understand this land belonged to our family. It was handed down from the King of Spain over to his first cousin, which was Joaquin Galan. And from here, it still belongs to our family. Just show me, and all we're asking the state of Texas is just show us. I don't care if Joaquin Galan put a JQ and said, hey, $100, you got the land. I'll accept that. If they can say that thing from 1810 before he died. But they can't show that. They can't show anything. Now, they can show a bunch of forged documents that have already been shown to be forged documents. That they can show, but we all know they're forged. And they even know they're forged. So they have nothing to go by or nothing to go with. And this is where our story has kind of come out in the news a little bit, but everybody's wondering, well, what's the evidence? We have the evidence, but we can't say it out. We can't show it out because it still hasn't been presented in court. The minute it's presented in court, everybody in this room can see it. And you guys can say, oh my God, these guys still own this land? Yeah, we do. We still own it. Because the state of Texas at that time said that.
There are some school funds properties, and if you take back in, I guess 20 years ago, I did
Yes.
research on the school funds, and a lot of the land grants that are from Zapata to Nueces, all that, there's a section, say an example, there's 6,000 acres. State of Texas came in and cut the tip of those 6,000 acres and put it in the school fund, so the SS funds. So, you know, there are some land grants out there that the state of Texas jumped into and took it from that particular land grant. And there's several down that have this. And there's research maps that I think I gave to the general land office years ago. And of course, they didn't say a word and I left, but I never heard anything else. But they know that we know, which a lot of people know, that some of that land, some of the land grants, that part of their grant has been shaved off and put into the school fund. So
No,
that's what all
yeah,
of the.
and I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
The only thing I can add to that, a lot of it, like you said, is part of it, but it's also owned by agents who work for the state, or owned by the state of Texas